Hey there, and thanks for joining me during this video where we're going to be talking about Zapier, a really cool app that allows you to connect apps that you already use to each other and create custom workflows between them. My name's Heather Satterley, and I'm the owner of Satterley Training and Consulting. My focus is on bringing you, the accounting professional, quality training to help you learn and master the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. And a big part of that ecosystem is learning to use apps and other tools like Zapier. So let's jump in and get started and learn about this amazing tool, Zapier. During this video, we're going to be talking about what is Zapier, what does it actually do, and how can you use it in your practice. We're also going to talk about how it works, and then finally, I'm going to teach you how to set up a Zap that's going to automatically email your service vendors a blank W-9 along with a request to have them complete it and upload it to a ShareFile account. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is Zapier? Zapier is an app, as I mentioned, that works with apps that you already use and allows you to connect them so that you can build custom integrations between them. For example, if I wanted to create the Zap that I was telling you about, where when I create a vendor, it automatically sends them an email requesting a Form W-9. Right now in that process, what happens is I create the vendor in QuickBooks Online, then I have to go to my Gmail account and create an email to that vendor and attach a blank W-9 to them and send it off. That takes me a few minutes. So what I did is I created a workflow in Zapier where the trigger is I create a new vendor in QuickBooks Online, and the action is that it will send an email from my Gmail account with a blank W-9 attached and a link to a folder in my ShareFile account where they can upload that document securely. This workflow alone has saved me a ton of time because every time I add a new vendor, I just click the button to save it in QuickBooks and the rest of it is finished. I'm all done with that workflow. So I'm going to show you how to create that, but really the important thing here is to understand what Zapier can do. In this workflow, I'm connecting two apps, QuickBooks Online and Gmail. And we're going to learn how easy it is to set this up. The first time I set this app up, it took me less than 10 minutes to figure out how to use it. And that's what makes this tool so incredibly powerful, is how easy it is to use. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Zapier. So when should you consider using Zapier? When can it be, that supercharged tool in your toolbox? Well, first of all, whenever we have an integration between two different apps that we're using and we send the information electronically, what happens is it eliminates errors. Because if my data is sitting in app A and I electronically send it to app B, that data doesn't get changed in the slightest when it goes from that first app to the second app. So it becomes really efficient. It also automates the processes. We just talked about my W-9s app and how that's saving me time because I don't have to go to my email account and actually manually send an email to my vendors. Sometimes we have clients and they're using apps and it lacks a native integration, meaning that the developers of the apps haven't built a tool or a bridge that allows you to send data back and forth between the app. If the app is supported by Zapier, and there's over 1,000 apps that are on the Zapier platform, then I can actually build my own integration to these apps using this tool. And you're going to see how powerful that is in just a few minutes. The other thing that can happen, the other reason we may need to use this, is that the native integration is not sufficient for what we need to do. So currently, we have shopping carts and merchant service providers like PayPal or Square, and sometimes we're not real comfortable or we don't really like the way that the data is imported from those apps into QuickBooks Online. Just either too much information comes over, the wrong type of information comes over, but it doesn't meet the needs that we have for ourselves or our clients to complete that workflow in the way that we want and that correctly is translated to QuickBooks Online reports. So what I can do with Zapier is I can connect apps like Square and QuickBooks Online to Zapier, and I can tell the apps exactly what fields and what data I want to send, that I want to really share between them. All right, so how do we create a Zap? So Zaps have three main components. First, we have the trigger, okay? And the trigger is basically something happens in an app. So for example, an email comes in Gmail. That could be a trigger. Another trigger could be in my Zap, a new vendor, right? Once that trigger occurs, I can create an action in Zapier, and that action actually tells Zapier what to do with the data that came in from the trigger. So the trigger happens, Zapier grabs that data based on that trigger, and it's sitting there in Zapier, and then I can create an action that tells Zapier to take the existing data and send it to another application. You can also use things like filters and other, in-product apps that work with Zapier, like a formatter or an email parser, to really narrow it down and tell Zapier exactly what to look for before you send the data, and what to look for and how you want to send the data over to the recipient app. All right, so this is a Zap that we're going to build. And I really think that, to understand how Zapier works, you really have to see it in action. So I'm actually going to teach you during this video how to build a simple Zap that is going to send a new vendor that's created in QuickBooks an email requesting a Form W-9. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So here's my current process to get a W-9 from my existing vendors. Typically, the first thing I'm doing when I think about having to get a W-9 from my vendor is that I get a bill from them, right? I've asked, I'm going to do work with them. I get their first bill. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to pay them until they send me that W-9, because the last thing that I want to do is chase vendors at the end of the year when I'm trying to prepare my 1099s. So my process starts in QuickBooks Online. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new vendor, and I would enter in the vendor's information. Going to enter the vendor's information, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this box down here that says track payments for 1099. That tells me I need to get a W-9 form from this vendor. So that is the process. That's the first step in my manual process to, get a W-9 from my vendor, and I would go ahead and click save. Then my next step would be to go into my Gmail account and create an email to that vendor asking them, please, to send me a W-9, and I would attach a W-9 from the IRS website, right, a blank W-9, and I would put a link in the email. I would put a link to the W-9 folder in my ShareFile account so that they could upload that form securely to me. So that's my existing process. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that takes me a little bit of time. So how am I going to automate this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the information and my existing process to figure out what my trigger is going to be. Okay, so my trigger is going to be a new vendor in QuickBooks Online. And I just showed you what that process looks like. I'm going to enter in the vendor information, and I'm going to check that box that they're subject to a 1099. Okay, then what I have to do is I have to tell Zapier, hey, not all of my vendors should get a 1099, only the vendors that provide me a service. And I determine that right when I check that box in QuickBooks. So I'm going to have to create a filter in Zapier to tell Zapier, hey, only use this Zap, only complete the action if I check that box in QuickBooks Online. Then I'm going to tell Zapier in the action step to send an email, and I'm going to set up the email with the wording that I like. I'm going to attach a blank W-9, and I'm going to insert in that email a link to my ShareFile folder. So let's take a peek at how I'm going to set up this Zap to automate my W-9 collection process. So my first step is to make a Zap. So inside my Zapier dashboard, I'm going to click Make a Zap, and then I have to choose what app is the trigger. So I'm going to click on Choose App, and then I'm going to come over here into this little search box, and I'm going to type in the app that is going to be my trigger. And you guys remember that's going to be QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to go ahead and type in QuickBooks Online, and then I have to choose what the trigger is. And do you guys remember what the trigger is? That's right, it's a new vendor. So I can either start typing in here, new vendor, and I can select that, or if I didn't want to type it, I could actually just search from the list here. You can see there's all different options. Once I select what my trigger is, I'm going to click Save and Continue, and then it's going to ask me to select which QuickBooks account, I want to connect to Zapier for this particular workflow. And in this case, I'm going to connect Chloe's cookies. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and then I'm going to click test to make sure that Zapier can communicate with Chloe's cookies. And then once I have a successful connection, I'm going to click save and continue. If I've never connected a QuickBooks Online company to Zapier, then I'm going to need to click on this connect an account button, and I'm going to need to set up the initial connection between QuickBooks Online and Zapier. Okay, so I'm going to click yes. I'm going to select the company or firm. Once I select that company or firm, I'm going to click confirm to authorize that connection. Once connected, we're going to go ahead and click save and continue. Okay, once we've done that, we need to fetch some actual data from that company so that we're able to see what the data looks like. And that's actually going to help us when we go into the next couple of steps, because it will actually show us some sample data that we can then map to the recipient or the action app, which in this case, if you remember, was Gmail. So I'm going to go ahead and click fetch and continue. It's going to go on out to Chloe's cookies, and it's going to grab a vendor, and then I can view that vendor information right here inside Zapier. And you can see that. You can see there's that new vendor that I had set up, right? Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm just going to go ahead and click continue. Now, if you remember, I don't want all of my vendors to get this email because not all of my vendors are service vendors. So I need to tell Zapier to only run the action, only send the email if that box track vendor for 1099 is checked. If it's not, I don't want it to continue to the Zap. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use one of the built-in Zapier apps, which is called Filter, to tell Zapier, hey, look for this box. If it's checked, which means true, then I want you to continue. If it's false, just stop. Don't run the Zap. So let's take a peek at how we're going to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on this little plus sign that says add filter or action. And in this case, I want to create a filter so that I can have Zapier look at that field before it continues on with the action. So I'm going to click filter, and I'm going to click save and continue because I only want it to continue if certain criteria is true. Now here in the filter setup and testing, I need to decide on the conditions. So for this particular Zap, my conditions are going to be if the 1099 box, which is right down here, vendor 1099, okay, is Boolean true. Is Boolean true is what I want to use. If it's true, then I want it to continue the Zap. Now there's lots of tricks and tips on how to figure out, what fields are in each app so that you can build these apps. And that's actually one of the things that I spend a lot of time covering in my Zap workshop. So I tell you exactly how to analyze the API, and I give you resources on where you can find that information so that you can be off and building your Zaps in no time. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test and continue. And you're going to see here that it says your Zap would have continued because that filter was true. That Boolean, that particular field was true for that particular vendor. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go on and move to my next step. And my next step, if you remember, is to send that email to my vendor. So again, I'm going to come up here and search my apps. When I click into the box, notice that it kind of looks at some of those apps or some of the apps that I've already used when I built Zap. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose Gmail, and then I'm going to, figure out, all right, then I'm going to select which action I want to do. So in this case, I want to send an email. Okay, there's other options here, so you could click on this show less common options if you wanted to choose something else, but in this case, we're just sending an email. I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and then I'm going to select the Gmail account that I want to use, and again, I'm going to click test to make sure that Zapier can connect to that particular app. Once I've done that, I'm going to click save and continue. And just a quick note, if you remember when I showed you how I connected QuickBooks, if I haven't set up that account, say it was a client's Gmail account that you want to send the email from or connect to, then you would need to go back and click on connect an account. And that's pretty much the same with any app that you are going to be using with Zapier. Okay. Next, I'm going to do the setup. What do I want the email to say to my vendors? Okay, so one of the cool features I love about Zapier is there's this Zapier, this setup preview, and what it does is it actually shows us the sample data from that first step, that trigger step. It actually shows me the data that it extracted from that app. So it makes it really easy to go through and map out the different actions. So let's take a peek at this. So who do I want to send this email to? And I need to choose which step. My first step was that QuickBooks company, right? That's where I grabbed that data, that vendor data. Or do I want to look in the filter? In this case, I'm going to choose new vendor. And the address that's going to be sent to is I'm going to click vendor@vendorcompany.com. Okay. I could also CC it. So if I wanted to send it to myself, so say I wanted to send this email to myself, then I could go ahead and put in, my email address, right? And I could also blind CC, and I can also choose who I want the email to come from. So in here, I'm choosing Heather@SatterleyConsulting.com. I can put in my name if I wanted to. So I could put in Heather Satterley, or I could pull a field from somewhere else, right? And then I'm going to put in the subject. And we'll put in our subject, please upload a completed Form W-9. Okay, so that's my subject line, and that's going to be the subject line that appears in the email that my vendor is going to receive. I also need to choose what the body type of the email is going to be, and I have a couple of choices here. I have plain, which means that it's just going to use basically raw text for the email, or I can use HTML. Now, most people, especially accountants like me, we don't know how to code HTML, and that sounds very, very daunting. But there's some great tools out there that you can use to convert your actual text to HTML. And then what you can do is you can just go ahead and copy it right into Zapier right here. So let me show you, let me take a moment just to show you where you can find one of those tools. All right, so this website, wordhtml.com, allows you to type in the text that you want to convert to HTML. And this tool will be absolutely invaluable to you as you're creating Zaps that require that HTML coding. So what I did is I just typed in what the body of the email should be, which was just, quick sentence about thank you for doing business with us and please upload the W-9. And then I actually grabbed the link from my share file account, the request link, and I created it here by using the insert edit link tool in here. Now what's going to happen if I click over to HTML, look at this. It has completely formatted that entire email into HTML. I didn't have to do anything. I just typed it in and bam, it's like a Christmas present here. So again, you're gonna find that at wordhtml.com. So great resource for you, totally free too, which is always very, very nice. So what we're gonna do here is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy it by either right-clicking and copying, or I can use Control-C, and I'm going to head back over to my Zap, and I'm going to select HTML as the body type, and then all I got to do here is bam, I just got to paste that HTML code that I just copied from the website right into the body of that email. Okay, I could optionally put in a mailbox, a specific mailbox in my Gmail account that I want to use. Don't really want to do that. And then the last thing I want to do is remember I have to attach that W-9, right? I got to attach the blank W-9 to this email. So in order to do that, it actually has to come from a URL. So if I had a particular document, hosted on my website, I could certainly use that. But guess who has a W-9 hosted on their website and has a URL attached to it? That's right, the IRS has that. So let's go on out and we're going to grab that from the IRS website. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do. I'm just going to go on and put in W-9. I'm actually just going to search for W-9 and look at that. IRS.gov, pub, IRS PDF, blah. There's the URL I need. So I'm going to go on out there, pull up that W-9, and then I'm going to right click and copy that baby, head back over to my Zap, right click again, and I'm going to paste it. Okay. Now that my email has been formatted, I want to take a peek at it. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and it's going to show me what that email looks like. Now don't be afraid, because when you look at this preview, it's actually going to show you the body in HTML, but that's okay because when it sends it to your vendor, they're only going to see the pretty words that we had put into that HTML editor, right? So we're not going to see all that inside the email. So I'm going to go ahead and send the test to Gmail and see if it actually works. And that's a fake vendor, but remember I actually sent a copy to myself. So let's see if it works. We'll go ahead and click it and said, you know what? Yay, congratulations, it actually worked. Okay, so now I can click finish. So let's head on over to my email and see what that looked like for my vendor. So here's the copy of the email that I sent to myself. And notice I got a mail delivery subnotice that it didn't get delivered because that's a fictitious email, so it never went to anyone. Keep in mind, and this is just a little tip for me to you, that when you're testing email Zaps and Zapier, when you hit that test button, it's actually going to send the email. So if I had used a real vendor and a real QuickBooks Online company, that person would have gotten that notice for me when I hit that test button. So be careful with that. I always use a test company when I'm testing Zaps before I actually implement them for myself or for a client. So this is what it looks like. So you see that HTML translated perfectly into this email. It says, thank you for doing business with me. Please complete the attached W-9 and upload it to our secure portal using the link below. And here's my link, and watch what happens. When I do that, it's coming right over here to my share file account where they can upload that file, and there's the blank W-9 that's attached to it. So pretty nifty, right? So you can use this in your own practice. Keep in mind that when you connect an app like QuickBooks Online to Zapier, that actually requires a paid plan with Zapier. So if you want to learn more about the pricing in Zapier, I'll put a link below in the comments section for this video, and you can check that out. Or better yet, you can register for my 5-week Zapier workshop sessions, and I will teach you all about the pricing and all of the things that you need to know to start building these workflows for yourself and for your clients. So just to give you a little bit more information about my 5-week session, the 5-week session, the next one starts on March 2nd, 2018. If it's beyond this time and you're watching this video, just check out my website, www.satterleytrainingandconsulting, and you can just click on the classes and webinars link, and you'll be able to find our upcoming sessions there. Keep in mind too, that pretty soon we'll be offering the option where you can download sessions either one at a time or buy the entire course as a downloadable or viewable course online, so you can watch it on your own pace. All right, so our first session is Introduction to Zapier, where you're going to learn how Zapier works, how to set up an account, what the pricing options are, the difference between the free account and a paid account, and a whole bunch of other idiosyncrasies around that. We'll also learn how to build a very, very simple Zap during that session. In session 2, we cover advanced features and tools. So we're going to cover the Zapier built-in apps, such as Formatter and the Filter, email parser by Zapier, that will help you to really understand how to manipulate data before you send it to the action apps. And that's really important information. The third session is Exploring Zaps for QuickBooks Online. So we'll be talking that entire hour is spent looking at ways that we can automate workflows using QuickBooks Online and other apps that we use and that our clients commonly use, like Square, PayPal, and other apps, and email and other apps as well. The fourth session is Exploring Zaps for Marketing, Social Media, and Communications. So in that session, we actually learn how we can communicate with our clients and with our team members using different Zaps, and we can automate a lot of those functions. So a couple of Zaps you'll learn in that session is how to automate your social media posts using apps like Feedly, Meet Edgar, Hootsuite, Constant Contact, and MailChimp. So we're going to be talking about different workflows that I've used in my practice and other ones that I've learned about in my travels, and how you can implement those both in your practice and with your clients. Finally, our final session is a 1-hour case study workshop where we actually look at a problem together with a fictitious client, and we solve it together going through the methodology that you learned throughout the course. And we build a Zap based on that fictitious client's needs and wants for a customized integration. So I really hope that you'll join me for this class. I'm really excited about it. What you get with the class is you get the 5 live sessions. So it's 5 weeks, 5 1-hour sessions live. You get an invitation to an exclusive Slack channel. So I will invite you into an exclusive Slack channel for your group where you can collaborate with me. You can watch the videos. If you miss a session, I will be posting the videos in that Slack channel along with the PowerPoint slides and other handouts. I also include resources in that Slack channel to help you as you're building your Zaps, and I'll answer some questions. And you get to collaborate with the other students that are taking the workshop as well. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I really hope to see you in one of my Zapier workshops and in other videos that I'll be posting about Zapier. So as Zapier's tagline says, Zapier makes you happier, and I can attest to that because it's been an absolutely wonderful experience learning to use it and learning to automate my practice and helping others automate their workflows as well. Have a great day, everybody.